You already know this feeling. Your phone buzzes. It's your bank app, and before you even open it, some part of your brain has already done the math and braced for bad news. Here's the number behind that feeling. According to Bankrate's 2026 survey, 59% of Americans could not cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. That's the worst this number has looked since 2021. A separate survey this year found the median emergency fund balance dropped by half compared to the year before. By the end of this video, you'll know why just save more is genuinely bad advice for most people. What the real number is you actually need to feel safe, and it's a lot smaller than you think, and a system to get there in 60 days that doesn't depend on willpower at all. But first, let's talk about why saving money is so much harder than the math suggests it should be. Here's what almost nobody tells you when they say, just save 20% of your income. For a huge number of people, that advice isn't a math problem. It's a wiring problem. When money is genuinely tight, your brain doesn't process the world the way it does when you're financially comfortable. Researchers who study financial stress describe it as a kind of tunnel vision. Your attention narrows onto whatever bill is due this week, and anything further out, car repair that hasn't happened yet, a medical bill you might not get, gets pushed out of view entirely. It's not that you don't care about the future, it's that your brain is built to solve the emergency in front of it first, every time. And this is measurable at scale, not just a feeling. Bankrate's research has found the share of Americans with zero emergency savings has hovered between roughly 21 and 29% for over a decade, meaning this isn't a personal failing that happens to some unlucky people. It's a structural pattern that's persisted through good economies and bad ones. So if telling yourself, I just need more willpower, hasn't worked yet, here's the twist. It was never going to work. For the same reason telling someone who's exhausted to just try harder doesn't fix exhaustion. The problem isn't effort, it's design. Which raises the real question. If willpower isn't the fix, what is? Most emergency fund advice starts by telling you the goal. 3 to 6 months of expenses. For a lot of households, that's somewhere north of $10,000. And if you're already living paycheck to paycheck, hearing that number doesn't motivate you. It does the opposite. It confirms the voice in your head that says, this isn't achievable, so why start? Here's the twist that actually matters, and it's the part most advice skips entirely. A full 6-month cushion is the long-term goal, not the starting line. The research on what actually changes people's financial stress tells a different story. A buffer of just a few $100s, enough to cover a flat tire, a smaller medical bill, or utility bill that came in higher than expected, is often what breaks what you could call the spiral effect. One surprise bill triggers an overdraft fee. The overdraft triggers a credit card swipe. The credit card swipe adds interest, and a single $80 problem turns into a $400 problem over the next 3 months. A small buffer doesn't eliminate that spiral, it just gives you an exit ramp before it starts. So the actual target for the next 60 days isn't $10,000, it's $600. That's $10 a day. Small enough to sound almost fake, big enough to change what a bad Tuesday actually costs you. Here's where most people start in the wrong place. They open a budgeting app, they try to calculate a percentage, they set a goal that requires them to feel motivated every single day for 2 months. The actual first move costs nothing and takes about 90 seconds. Separate the money from your eyes. If your emergency fund is sitting in the same account you pay for coffee out of, it isn't an emergency fund. It's just a slightly padded checking account, and your brain will find a reason to spend it because visible, accessible money always gets treated as available money. This isn't a character flaw, it's just how attention and money work together. So today, before anything else, open a separate savings account, somewhere slightly inconvenient to reach, a different bank than your main one if possible. Name it something specific. Hide it from your banking app's main screen if your bank allows that. You're not being dramatic. You're designing an environment where the default behavior is saving instead of an environment where you have to fight yourself every day to save. Then automate something almost embarrassingly small. $5 a day, $3 a day. Whatever number doesn't feel like a sacrifice at all. Time the transfer to hit right after payday, not whenever I remember, because whenever I remember has a 100% failure rate over any real stretch of time. The goal isn't the dollar amount. It's building a habit that runs whether or not you're motivated on any given day, because you won't be most days. Nobody is. Your brain needs proof this works before it will trust the process. So, week one isn't about the full $600. It's about finding the first $100 fast enough to feel real. 3 moves, all doable in the first 7 days. First, open your last 2 bank statements and look specifically for anything recurring that you forgot you were paying for. A trial that quietly converted to a subscription, an app fee you don't remember agreeing to. This channel has covered exactly how deliberately hard some of these are to find and cancel. But even one forgotten $12 a month charge is $144 a year you can redirect starting today. Second, give yourself a 48-hour rule for anything that isn't a necessity for the next 60 days. Not a ban, a pause. Most impulse purchases lose their pull once the impulse itself passes, and 48 hours is usually enough for that to happen. The real threat to your $600 goal was never a $5 coffee. It's decisions made in the 15 seconds after an ad catches you off guard. Third, pick one weekend and sell 3 things you already own that you haven't touched in 6 months. Old electronics, unused gear, clothes that don't fit anymore. This isn't about your ego or your stuff. It's about converting things sitting in a closet doing nothing into a number sitting in your new account doing something. Those 3 moves alone typically clear $100 in the first week, sometimes faster, and now your brain has proof this isn't theoretical. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people don't have a budgeting problem. They have a leaking problem. Small, frequent, easy to justify expenses that never show up as one big decision, so they never feel like the thing standing between you and $600. Try this for the next 14 days. Sort every purchase into 3 categories: things you genuinely need, things that are nice but flexible, and things that are pure impulse or convenience. Don't judge it yet, just sort it. Here's what usually shows up once people actually do this. Something like $20 a week on takeout ordered out of exhaustion, not hunger. $10 a week on convenience store stops. $15 a week on small online purchases that seemed harmless one at a time. That's $45 a week. Over 8 weeks, that's $360, more than half of your entire $600 goal. And none of it required a single hour of extra work. It required noticing. This is also where groceries usually get people. Not because anyone is being careless, but because food decisions tend to happen at the worst possible moment. Tired, rushed, hungry, right now. The fix isn't willpower there either. It's removing the decision. Pick 4 or 5 cheap, repeatable meals for the next 60 days so you're never deciding from a blank page while starving at 7 p.m. And keep one planned treat a week on purpose, because a plan with zero flexibility in it doesn't build discipline. Cutting expenses only gets you so far, especially if you're already stretched thin. At some point, the fastest path to $600 isn't spending less, it's a small temporary bump in income aimed specifically at this 60-day window. This doesn't require starting a business. If extra hours or a shift pickup are available at your current job, that's usually the highest return for the least new effort. Even 4 extra hours a week at a modest hourly rate adds up to real money over 8 weeks. If that's not available, one weekend dedicated to something that pays quickly. Deliveries, helping someone move, tutoring, freelance work in whatever you're already good at, with a specific target, say $150, tends to work far better than a vague goal like, earn some extra money when I can. And there's one more move that costs you nothing but a phone call. Call one recurring bill, internet, phone, insurance, and simply ask if a cheaper plan or promotion exists. This works more often than people expect, precisely because most companies never lower a price unless someone asks. Picture someone we'll call Dana. Not reckless with money, just stuck in a loop familiar to a lot of people. Every surprise expense went on a credit card, and the credit card payment made the following month even tighter, which made the next surprise expense even more likely to end up on a card again. Dana tried a full, detailed budget first and abandoned it within 2 weeks. Too many categories, too much guilt attached to every entry. So instead, Dana did the smaller version: a separate account, a small daily auto transfer, one canceled subscription, one weekend of selling unused gear, one negotiated phone bill. By day 34, the account held $410. Then the car needed a new alternator. The version of Dana from 2 months earlier would have reached for a credit card at over 20% interest and spent the next several months absorbing that hit. This time, Dana paid it directly from the account, transferred nothing else that month, and simply started rebuilding it back up the following week. The number that mattered wasn't the $410. It was what Dana said afterward. For the first time in a long time, a bad day stayed a bad day instead of turning into a bad season. You don't build an emergency fund after your life feels stable. You build one so your life can survive the parts that aren't. 59% of people couldn't cover a $1,000 surprise this year. You don't have to fix that whole number. You just have to stop being part of it. And the path there isn't a dramatic overhaul of your entire financial life. It's a separate account, a small automatic transfer, a handful of leaks you finally notice, and 60 days. This has been Fox Method.